Hi everybody, good evening. It's been a really nice Sunday here. As far as just the day, the actual day has been rainy, but I choose to, in my mind, think of it as a good day. I hope you're all having a good day wherever you are. I just did 3 tree trunks here. I'm not going to draw out the branches because in this particular tutorial, all I want to do is show you the different ways that I can put in foliage. So I don't need branches for that. One of the ways, this is a flat brush, and the paper is dry. I have just a little water on my brush and a little paint. So it's going to kind of be like dry scrub. But it still is going to end up, I need a little bit of water on my brush, but not very much. And it's just called a dry scrub, and we can scrub it all around. This is a very simple video here. Mine are very beginner friendly, and I do that on purpose. So we can use a fairly dry brush with fairly dry paint on dry paper, and that's what it will look like, dry brush. Then I can take a little more water on my brush, go into the paint with a little more water on my brush, and still no water on the paper, and I can do this. Okay, so this brush can, some people split their brush. Well, by the time I finish doing this, it's going to be pretty split. So I don't need to start it that way. And that gives this type of effect of the foliage. I can add in some darker green by adding some blue to it. There are other ways, but we'll use blue. And we can just get a little more paint here. And we'll just, we're dabbing. It's kind of like dabbing. We have that kind that had some water on it. And that's with the flat brush, so a fairly small flat brush. We can also go in with a round brush. I have a fairly small round brush, like a medium round brush, and I can just sort of dab, and I'm wiggling and twisting this brush in my hands as I go with the tip of the brush, just dabbing it. And this is another way we can create tree foliage, right? It all looks like tree foliage. You can even do this first and then stick in, whoops, I got a little too much brown on there. I didn't want to do that. Hold on. Just a different green. We can even do this, excuse me, first, and then add branches in later, either way. Now that was on dry paper with a fairly dry brush. Now I'm adding some water in here and getting my paints a little more watery. And do you see the difference of how it looks? They're not as dark, for one thing, and they have, not as striking, not as poignant, strong of a look to them, right? Now, I can go back with that. This is dry, definitely dry, because it was pretty much dry in the first place. And so the paper was actually totally dry. So I can come back in here with my pretty much dry brush and scrumble over it again. Dry brush, scrumble, bunches of terms. And I can add color. I got my palette upside down, and that's why I keep reaching for a color that I normally have in a certain spot, and I flipped the thing around when I was organizing my table. That's too funny. Okay, so in that dry, again, over the dry, and now we can come back here with a semi-wet brush and some semi-wet paints. And I actually have a little darker paint with this round brush, but it's a pointed tipped brush, but it's round. And we can go over what we did because it's pretty much all dry. You can do the same thing here with this round brush, just dabbing, 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 twisting in my hand, and that's the effect that those will give, which are always really nice. You can add some yellow, you know, and things like that. So, or some darker for the darker areas of the trees, of course. That's with this round brush with the pointed tip. Now, what I'd like to do is show you what it looks like. I was trying to find my small fan brush. Oh, here it is. Okay. My goodness, it was hiding in there. Okay, so now I didn't draw. I'm going to just, not that I have to, but just for the sake of the fact that I did the others, so I will draw a tree trunk here. Okay, so for the sake of this tree, showing you what a fan brush can do with the green colors, which fan brushes can make some really nice tree foliage. And this is pretty dry brush on dry paper, and you can see I'm dabbing. It's pushing it down. But it makes some very interesting looking tree foliage to me. I like it. And I can do that. I can go in, I could get some darker green, a darker green color. Go in here and it actually works very nice. I can get some lighter with the yellow, add that in. And I actually, believe it or not, well, it depends on what I'm painting. But I've always kind of fallen into the fan brush for trees, for tree foliage a lot. I do it a lot because I just like the looks. It's getting kind of wet right now, so it's all soaking in. But you get the idea. If I came over here, you know, and we can add that if we want. But, you know, those are, you know, 3 different kinds of brushes. A fan brush, a flat brush, and a round brush, all making those tree foliage. And now another thing I wanted to show you was that I can also take this, usually I like the smaller fan for this, so I have another one that's smaller. Get a little water on it. We're gonna get some dark color here going on. I'll start here, and I'm going to paint this tree trunk with this fan brush. You're probably thinking, how in the heck do you paint the tree trunk with a fan brush? Well, it's on my side. I just felt like putting purple in there. It's on its side, and as you can see, I'm touching down. What it does is it gives this textury look to the tree, which I like very much. I can go up into the tree and sort of on its chisel, the tip, I can add the branches if I want. Just go in there and do that. We can take some white. Oh, I think it's dried up. I didn't wet them first. And to give it highlight, we can come and do the same thing, right? All right, that's with the fan brush, which I always think they look really cool. Tree trunks with fan brushes. And then, or I can take the round brush that we did a lot of the dabbing, dabbing with it. I can come back here and I can use this, which makes a smoother look, of course, using the tip or the belly or both. And, make this type of looking. Now, I can do this a little differently if my brush was totally dry. I come in here, it's pretty much dry. So I can make a kind of textured look by having the dry brush. But if you're doing the round, I kind of like, using it for what it is. So we come in here and we just paint that old tree trunk on there. And of course, there's a lot of ways to make that tree look a little different. We can take some whites, you know, to add the white part of the tree. I'm getting too much paint on there, and just, you know, add these like a white birch or a birch tree, and we can add these touches, which will also come back in. Now, I can do this with this one. I don't think I can, but and I don't want to ruin the brush, but no, so I don't want to do that. But that's, you know, the idea for, can just kind of dab it to have one side darker. We always have one side darker, and that gives its own kind of texture of its own, right? Go right down the sides, and that gives its own texture. And that's with the round pointed tipped brush. And again, we can come right up and go into our tree, even though we've got, usually what I do, if this is the way that it worked, that I didn't get the branches in first for whatever reason, I will just go back over once it's dry and add them some more green and so forth and so on. So you see what I'm saying. So we did this trunk with the fan brush and we highlighted it, and the highlight is starting to fade in because with watercolor it fades in a lot lighter. So we can come back in, and again, this is why I like the fan brush, because you see it just makes that organic look to it. Or I can come over here onto the one I made with the round brush and I can do the same thing. So I get that look as well, more of a textured look. And then we have, of course, the flat brush that we used, or any flat brush. Get some paint on it. And I can use the side like this, kind of back and forth, or I can lay it on its tip and paint that right in nicely. Either way, it works very nice. Either way, sideways, like this, or on its tip, or even the corner. You can use it the corners. And again, depending, you can come up here and drag your tip around to add the some branches in there. And again, I can either use this flat one for the highlighting of this one side. This is the flat one. Or I can come over here and use the right over the flat brush tree and use the fan brush to add some highlights to it. Right? Or even for that matter, I can take this round brush and I can do the same thing. I can add in. So all brushes can do all kinds of things. Some of them better than others. Some of the effects are better than others. It just all depends on you and what you're looking for. These were all fairly small. This round one was not as small as these others. So I wanted to show you what can happen if I took a great big brown brush like this. These are like some of my favorite brushes. I very seldom use this size of a round brush, but just for the sake of this little tutorial here, I'm going to do it. So I'm going to go into this dark color that I've got going on and get it onto my brush and take this. I'm mostly only using, it's so big, I'm really only using the tip of my brush. But I don't have very much water on it, and I don't have much in my paper, on my paper, because I wanted you to see that kind of dry. Remember we talked about the dry brush effect on this foliage? Well, I can kind of get that same thing with very little water on my brush as I use this. Then I can go in even as well, go to my white or whatever color I wanted to use. You can use pink, you can use white, you can use, we'll do a little pink, how's that? I don't think it'll show, but yeah, I guess it does. And with the tip of my brush, I can go this way and put that highlight on. I can go down this way with the tip, right? Or I can just kind of go like this with more of the belly. So on all these trees, we can use all these different brushes. It just all depends on what you want to use, the effect that you're going to get. Mine preference is almost always either the bark of the tree or the foliage, depending on the painting I'm doing. That's all. It's just, you know, something a painter just, they decide. You decide. But I like this effect, and I like this effect. Now see, that's pretty much dried, so what I'd like to show you is I'll get one of my fan brushes again. We'll come back into some green, and that's dried, so we'll add some nice yellowy green and see if we can make it show up. So I'm going to take, I guess I don't have enough water, so I'm going to get some water on the brush, on the fin, not a lot, enough so that we can make this work. And get a color going on here that I did a lot of colors in the first place, so unfortunately we don't have too many more. Let's see if I can get that one. Can't see it all that well, but you just keep layering. It's layering, right? We've talked about layering before. I can do the same thing over here if I want to add, you know, the fan brush effect to, you know, it's all in what you want to portray and show. It's all up to you. These make nice, like, drooping, you know, looks like drooping foliage. Makes really nice drooping foliage as well. Like I said, I tend to lean a lot to the fan brush for trees, both the barks and the foliage. But they also look nice, you know, like for instance, just for instance, I'll show you something in here. I'm going to just put this little house in, right? I'm going to pretend I have a little house here. Hopefully you'll be able to see this. Let's see here, we just want this. I don't care what the house looks like. That's not the point. Okay, so we have a little house. And around that house, we want some foliage. So by using the round one, I can come in and dab a bunch of foliage. They look this way, looks really nice around a building. I can go in and get some darker color, add it to the beside the house and add it, so I've got my darks and my lights going on. I can get some yellow, come in and dab that around, and that, you know, that looks really, let's see if I can darken that up a little bit. It looks real nice. We have that, you know, foliage that you see around a home. And that looks really nice. I like that very much. Now, if I was to use the this flat brush, I could do it, but I couldn't really, you know, I got it on my side. I've got it. You can do it, but it doesn't give that same kind of effect that these little round brushes do, right? I'm moving it. I can kind of do it, but it's not the same, right? And so we can, you know, change up the color a little. It's okay. I mean, and I can dab like this. Then, if I want to use the fan brush, the little one here, I could come in, and it's going to be a little hard, you see. I mean, I could use my corner of it, but it's just not, it's not going to give me the effect I'm really looking for around that house. I could do what I'm doing here and get some stuff on the top, but what I seem to go towards when it's houses in around houses is this look, which it literally is all preference. It's what you like when you're painting, but I twist it around in my hand. I hold it kind of like this, and I just twist it in my fingers, get another color and twist it around. And for whatever reason, I go for that look when I'm doing little houses or houses and so forth. To me, I just like that dabby little look that happens around homes or fences or anything. I tend to use the fan brushes for this type of effect. And around homes and gates and things like that, I usually use the, sometimes I've used the flat, but most always it's the round. So all these things are complete preferences. They're all your preference that you can do yourself. It's entirely up to you. You have the paintbrush. You choose the method, right? It's entirely up to you what you want to do. See, I can get a bit of that textured look that I got here with the flat brush, but not quite. I like it better with the fan brush. But whether you use one or the other to begin, you can use the other to finish. Like I showed you, even though I had started this with a round and this with a flat, I can still go into my, where's the small one? I can go into my highlight color, and I can come here and I can dab it in anyway, because I want to end up with that effect look, all in your preference. So anyway, folks, I hope that kind of helped you to kind of get a little bit of understanding on these brushes and how they work and how you can use them. And of course, you can use them in many ways with many different objects. We're just doing trees here, and then I did a little home here. Another reason why these work so nicely is because I can take this and right in front here, I want a little tiny bush. It works great to have the tip of the brush to make these cute little bushes in the front. It's just something about the pointed tipped round brushes that works good for that kind of thing. I mean, if I made the house and everything, you can see it's nice, it's layered, there's depth in the trees, but they just seem, this type of brush, and it wouldn't matter whether it was this size round, it'd be quite a lot harder if I tried it with this one, but I can do it. You can do it with practice. This one, or you can even go with the little small ones. And that all happens, as I've mentioned before and in other videos, with practice. Practicing using brushes, practicing using your water and paint, practicing the techniques, the muscle memories, all of those things make all of what we're doing a lot easier. They make a lot more sense. You have a lot less frustration, and you have a lot more fun painting. So check out my other tutorials, folks, and have a wonderful rest of your evening. Bye for now.